Okay, Alexander, we have, let's see, Russian diplomats in Czech Republic booted out. 18 diplomats have been expelled from the Czech Republic. We have Russia answering to the Czech Republic's expulsions by kicking out 20 Czech diplomats, which, from what I understand, is probably makes up the bulk of the embassy. And the Czech Republic is now saying that with these 20 diplomats being kicked out, they probably can't continue operating anyway, which makes sense. An embassy, a country the size of the Czech Republic doesn't probably have that many people on staff. So 20 is probably pretty significant there. Anyway, all of this is coming about because the Czech police have somehow done an investigation. By chance, they've done an investigation from an event that happened in 2014, a bomb explosion that at the time was ruled an accident at a military depot. But now they're saying that it wasn't an accident and it was Russia intel officers. Now, Alexander, before you jump in, this story gets really interesting because the people that the Czech police alleged to have been involved in this explosion, and we don't really have many details, are the same two guys who the UK allege poisoned Sergei and Yulia Skripal, Alexander Petrov and Ruslan Boshirov. I'm sure everyone remembers these guys. Photos were taken of them walking around Salisbury. They say they were there on holiday traveling. The UK, I believe at the time it was Theresa May, said that they're the people that were behind this NOVI, poisoning in Salisbury, which poisoned some ducks as well, and all kinds of craziness that happened there with the Skripals. Anyway, the Czech police say it's the same two guys. This is beyond crazy. Yeah. What do you make of this story?
Well, absolutely. I mean, can I just say, I mean, the Russian media, especially Russian social media, apparently, has exploded over this one with derision and ridicule about it. And I have to say this. I mean, the whole thing looks utterly fantastic. First of all, why would Russian intelligence want to plant a bomb in a Czech ammunition place? I mean, that already doesn't make much sense. I mean, it just doesn't make any kind of sense at all. Then why would it take the Czechs 7 years to find that the Russian intelligence was involved? I mean, again, that doesn't make a huge amount of sense. And then linking these two characters to this particular story, I think tips it over into complete absurdity. Note, by the way, and this is just one point I would make, which is that, of course, those two characters, Bashirov and Petrov, were repeatedly told that they're aliases, and a certain organisation in Britain, which I'm not going to name, has actually given them published what it says are their true names. But I noticed that Western governments, including the Czech government in this case, continue to refer to them as Petrov and Bashirov. So maybe those other names we have been told, which are their real names, are not securely believed to be their real names. Anyway, I don't know. But this whole thing looks to be ludicrous. I mean, it seems to have a farcical quality. But it has consequences because, as you rightly say, the Russians have reacted much more strongly than the Czechs expected. The Czech interior minister has admitted as much. The Russians have expelled 20 employees of the Czech embassy in Moscow. That seems to be pretty much everybody who works there. That makes the position of the Czech embassy in Moscow practically unviable. The Czech Republic, or at least Czech people and Russia, have had historically fairly amicable relations. The Czech president is known to be fairly sympathetic to Russia. And I was in Prague in August of last year. I should say Prague is perhaps the one place in the Czech Republic where people are more likely to be ill-disposed towards Russia. And yet I was surprised to see how many signs were in Russian and how much many Czechs seem to be quite friendly, well disposed towards Russians. So I think it's going to come as something of a shock in the Czech Republic. And I do wonder and ask myself, what is behind all of this? Because on the face of it, the whole thing seems completely absurd. And it's as if the Czech Republic's relationship with Russia has been destroyed over something that is, on the face of it, ridiculous.
Okay, well, there might be a reason as to what's going on here. That will explain what's going on here. Let me just read you two very short paragraphs from RT. RT says this. Notably, the diplomatic scandal rocked Czech-Russian relations on the eve of Foreign Minister Hamáček's scheduled visit to Moscow, where he was to have discussed the possible purchase of the Russian Sputnik 5 medication. People, I'm being very careful in what I say to all our viewers, because when you say these words, your video gets pretty much nuked, not demonetized, taken down. So the Foreign Minister Hamáček was scheduled to go to Moscow to talk about purchasing the Russian medication. Everyone knows what I mean. The breakdown in relations has also disrupted Russian-Czech cooperation in the field of nuclear energy. On Sunday, Czech Minister of Industry and Trade, Karol Havlicek, said Russia's state-owned nuclear energy corporation, Rosatom, would likely be barred from tendering for renovating the Czech Republic's Dukovany nuclear power plant. So you have two business events, big business events taking place. It looked like purchasing of the medication seemed like it was pretty much a done deal. And the nuclear energy renovation, I would imagine that Russia had a good chance of getting that, given their aptitude as being an industry leader in this type of thing. So two big business events about to take place, and all of a sudden, 2014, military depot explosion, Russian intel, everything gets torn apart. No more cooperation.
I think that probably is the explanation. I mean, can we talk briefly about the medication? Again, we have to be very, very careful. But of course, the government of neighbouring Slovakia tried to buy this same medication from Russia. That triggered an enormous political crisis in Slovakia, with all sorts of people acting to try to block that. I'm not going to say more because, as we discussed, just as you said, you have to be so careful about what you say about this now. But there has been every conceivable attempt to stop the medication being used in Slovakia. And of course, it looks as if somebody is also very unhappy about it being used in the Czech Republic also. And on top of that, we now have words from none other than Emmanuel Macron saying that the European Medicines Agency, which has been slow walking its licensing of this medication, is almost certainly not going to license it in any, acceptable time scale, which makes it all but inconceivable that it is going to be used in Europe in any acceptable time scale either. And I've always thought that, by the way, some places on the fringes, like Hungary, where Orban is in full control of his government, will use it. Serbia is also using it. But I think the rest of the European Union is not going to use it. They're going to do everything they possibly can. They're going to pull out the stops to prevent it happening. Because, of course, using a medication like that brings soft power in its wake. It changes people's feelings and attitudes, and that's something that some people can't allow. And I suspect that this is partly, in fact, mainly, what this latest scandal is all about. It ought to be said that Czech-Russian relations have been deteriorating for some time. There was a big issue. I say sometime, over the last few months, there was an argument about a renaming of some streets in Prague, about the taking down of the statue of a Russian general in Prague, the Russian general who liberated Prague from the Germans. So there's all of that going on. But I think on top of that, the idea of having a Russian medication being used in the Czech Republic, which, by the way, has been hit very hard by the pandemic. That was unacceptable to some people, and I think they've acted to block it. And of course, the idea of Rosatom getting a bridgehead into Central Europe, involving itself in the Czech Republic's nuclear industry, well, that will have, sent alarm bells ringing across European chancelleries and in the US as well to an extraordinary degree. So I think this big scandal has been whipped up at this time, almost certainly for that reason, because, as I said, I mean, nothing about this story makes any kind of sense taken by itself. And I think that the big victim of this is the Czechs. And having been to the Czech Republic, having met the people there, having liked the country very much, I have to say I'm very sorry about that, because it seems to me that they've been drawn into a small country. They've been drawn into a geopolitical chess game, which it's not in their interests or to their advantage to become involved in. But if you join the European Union and you become part of NATO, well, I think that comes with the territory. And I think that's the reality that we're looking at now.
I think we have to come to an understanding that the way things are moving under this Biden administration, we are going to have another Iron Curtain in a way, aren't we? I mean, it's the first time that I've seen, even just doing basic business between Russia and an EU country now is just going to be sabotaged. And today it's the Czech Republic. Tomorrow it's Italy. The next week it's Germany, and the week after that it's Greece, and then Portugal. I mean, any interaction with Russia going forward is just going to be it's not going to be frowned upon. It'll just be sabotaged in one way or another, blocked, barred, sabotaged, prohibited, whatever it's going to be. So, eventually you're going to probably even get to visas and tourism and stuff like that as well, where you're not even going to have, Russians, and maybe I'm being extreme. You're going to make it even harder for, say, Russians to travel to Europe and for Europeans to go to Russia. I mean, we are seeing a type of virtual Iron Curtain being built.
Absolutely, that is exactly where we're heading, because I can't really see that there's any move to stop it. But of course, there is a fundamental difference. We're talking about the Iron Curtain. That was something that the Soviet Union created. Now it's the pressure, the drive to do it is coming from the other direction. As I said, it's not the Russians who are driving this process. It's certain people in the West who are. And it's remarkable and amazing to see to what an extent it's actually happening. But there we are. I agree, actually. I think that is exactly where we're heading. I think that it's already becoming increasingly difficult for people from each part of the world to travel and see the other. Business dealings, certainly business dealings on any major scale, are running into ever greater problems. I think that there is a determination to try to enforce greater bloc discipline, if I can put it like that, on all European countries. And I think we're going to see ever greater pressure on them to conform to this, with ever greater pressure on European countries to abide by the policies, if you like, of whoever is making these decisions to pursue a hard line. And I think that's the way this is going. And I think this is going to continue this way. And I think, if you like, maybe not quite as hard a border as we had during the Cold War. We won't have, iron curtains and watch guards and people shooting at other people when they cross the border. It won't be quite like that. But the reality will be that it will be very, very much harder for people to cross and move and deal with each other and meet each other in the way that was the case before.
Yeah, I mean, they'll make it be such a pain in the ass to travel, say, to Russia, or vice versa, that people will just say, okay, I can get a visa and go to Russia. I can get a visa if I'm in Russia and go to to Paris, to France. But, you know, it's such a pain that I prefer to go to a country that doesn't have any of this visa stuff. I mean, they'll make it so difficult. And the same goes for business. They'll make it so difficult, and they'll make you jump through so many hoops in order to do what you have to do between the two areas.
Well, exactly.
People are just going to say, you know what, screw it. I mean, is the goal all along not conflict, but a new Cold War? Is that maybe the end goal to all of this?
I think there's some element of this. I think that there is huge anger, and I think this is a point that really needs to be said, that Russia, instead of succumbing to all this pressure that has been exerted on it, seems to be able to defy it, and indeed able to grow and grow successfully. And I think this is creating a desire to sort of punish the country even more. So I think there is a sort of emotional push there too. But I think also there is a concern that if you start letting people from the West interact with the Russians, do business with them, have their tourists coming, if you have Westerners going to Moscow, St. Petersburg, other places in Russia, that might not actually, you know, work into the narrative of the Russians as the bad guys. So I think there is elements of this. I think that there is still, at the back of some people's minds, a hope that someday Russia will crack. And I think that the fact that it isn't doing so is causing them to double down and intensify. But you're quite right, by the way. I mean, the attitudes, I should say, are changing. And one of the interesting things is, and again, Paul Robinson has been charting this, is that opinion polls are now showing that Russians no longer think of themselves as Europeans, are no longer so attracted to Europe as they once were. And this seems to be a general trend there. But, you know, Russians will not be isolated in their country in the way that they were during the Cold War, when their own government prevented them from travelling. They will still be able to travel to many places in the world. They can travel across Asia. They can travel to, obviously, to China, to Turkey, to Iran, to Singapore, to Thailand, to all of these, to Japan, to all of these countries around the world. It'll be Europe that the fault line will now be. So it's not going to have the effect in isolating the country, if that's the plan, that some people perhaps hope it will.
Yeah. It also means giving NATO a purpose and more money, I guess. So you can keep that grift going.
Oh, well, obviously, I mean, that's part of the agenda always. I mean, it always is. I mean, notice, by the way, that the Biden administration, despite saying that it was going to pursue a less militaristic policy and that it wouldn't rely on kinetic force to the extent that was the case previously, has actually increased the defence budget, which of course surprised many people. So, I mean, obviously the MIC in the United States continues to see the dollars roll, and that's going to go on forever and until, you know, this we finally arrive, whatever the end point is.
All right, guys. I'll drop a 10% coupon to the Duran shop down below, 10% off all the merch. Take care.